Yeah, so the injustice is clear, and we got to be mature about it, and we got to understand what's happening here, and it's very, very clear that this debate, this topic is not, this current generation is not ready for this topic. So then, I started throwing the idea around of a moot court, and maybe, I was thinking about the best thing to do would be a class action for declaratory relief, but that is still a viable option. Like I said, if we were to survive the first stumbling blocks that they throw our way, namely the a summary judgment motion, right? So let's say, for example, we survive the summary judgment motion, so like she has to, get grilled in the hot. She'll be in the hot seat, having to answer the questions at discovery, right? And that sounds something that's very, very. I think we'll be able to learn a lot as a society from that, right? But I don't even live there. I don't care to go back because that place is just it's dangerous. It's a dangerous, dangerous place to be, especially when I have a young family. First, you got these whack job, people trying to indoctrinate my children that are there now with the propaganda that is they're pushing in the school, and they're flying on the flag, right? They have a whole flag dedicated to the propaganda. It's really, really, intense. But anyway, let's say, for example, a moot court, right? So the video today is about a moot court, and I was like, well, should we do this moot court thing? Is it a valuable use of time? And I think it actually would be, right? Let's say, for example, I were to advance that idea to some sort of law professor or something like that. I think because the idea is, am I wasting my time making these videos, right? Nobody watches your videos and all this stuff. It's not meant for right now, right? This is not meant for the year. We're in the year 2026, right? And I've been making these videos just about a year now, since February 2025, right? I wrote my book 1 year ago, and I didn't think it was going to be, you know, so I thought the matter was going to slowly dissipate and all this stuff. I was going to be like, I'll work on this for a little bit, and then after that I'll move on to something else, which I do. I'm on this somewhat part time on this matter here. This matter is the birth control thing, right? Let's say, for example, you're a young couple. Let's say, for example, you're a young couple, and you are engaged in premarital sex. Let's say, for example, you're fornicating, right, which is a sin, right? And then, but it's okay, because the woman is on the pill. Right. Well, that's okay because the woman is on the pill. No, it's not. It's really, really not, because that pill will not suppress the ovulation 100% of the time. There is a percentage of the time that the pill will suppress the ovulation, but it's not 100%. And then, yeah, okay, there's it will inhibit the sperm penetration and all this stuff. Um, that is true. That is what the mechanism of action is. But the mechanism of action, it's clearly written. Well, it's not so clear. It's actually very very confusing. But that the fertilized ovum will fail to implant due to the altered endometrium. What does that mean? That means the baby will die. The baby that has been conceived, the most valuable, the most precious thing on the earth, the most valuable asset on the earth, right? It will be destroyed because of Dr. Michel Dow and those kinds of medical, people, and everybody that is backing her up. It's a David and Goliath kind of fight, right? But who's right? Who's right? I'm right, and I would love to be able to. To see somebody that would, legitimately put the argument that I'm uttering some sort of delusional, non-existent, kind of idea. Because I mean that's not true. But they cannot, absolutely cannot argue with the merits of the case, with the subject matter, because the only thing they can do is shut this down, in the procedures that they themselves create. Right? They create these procedures, especially for these types of. Maybe especially for this one here. I don't know. But anyway, the procedures have stopped the investigation, right? So we cannot invest due to these. Sorry, we cannot investigate due to these procedures, and these procedures that we are the ones that will put these procedures as a roadblock to be able to not investigate. Right? It's foolish, right? It's a foolish thing. So and then, anyway, so I was all like, well, the moot court thing, right? Well, what about this moot court? If you're not aware, a moot court is basically it's like a real court, except there's no consequence, right? It's a moot court, like it's a real trial, but there's no, there would be no criminal penalties or civil damages, ordered against the defendant, which is Dr. Michel Dell, which is my own family being honored across the country from coast to coast to coast on the national news, and she's portrayed and the obituaries read, oh, thank you so much, Dr. Michel, for what, right? For what? But you know whose obituary I don't see? All the people that she killed, right? So it's not it's like sweeping these innocent souls under the rug, right? This is a person, right? A person that she killed, right? She's a deranged psycholunatic killer that is so skillful at the art of death that she kills a baby at the very earliest possible stage, right? The 8 day, right, in gestation. 8 days in gestation. If you can imagine such an early stage to be able to kill a human being at 8 days in gestation. 8 days in gestation. I am so skillful at the art of murder, of the art of death, at the art of killing, right? So skillful, a skillful, stealthy killer that nobody even knows, and the police can't even figure out that she's a killer, right? It's really, 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 it's a really crazy story, but it's true. So the prosecution would argue that human life begins at fertilization as a biological fact, and that once fertilization occurs, a distinct human organism exists. If a pharmacological agent has a known mechanism that may prevent implantation after fertilization, and if that mechanism foreseeably results in the destruction of that organism, then the act carries legal consequences in any jurisdiction that recognizes personhood at fertilization. I'm in a country right now, and the baby has a constitutional right to be protected from fertilization, from conception, right? So it's actually written in the Constitution of this country where I am right now. It's that my baby that I have right now is protected from day one, from the first minute from conception, right when that the ovum accepts the egg, not when the sperm meets the egg like a race, but we talked about that in my previous video, where the oocyte will actually select the best possible sperm, yeah, and then it will accept that sperm and to be able to create the developing human, right, to be able to initiate that DNA, the zygotic genome activation will happen, and then after that there's a new set of DNA. It's a baby, right? It's a baby at fertilization. So what I'm saying is that the country that I am here, it's constitutionally protected a baby from fertilization. Right, constitutionally protected. Right, imagine if Canada were to be protecting their people, their own citizens from conception in the Constitution. Right, we wouldn't have this nonsense. Less can be said about the constitutionality of it. But anyway, the prosecution would further argue that failure to disclose post-fertilization effects constitutes a material omission under informed consent doctrine. If consent was obtained without full disclosure of a mechanism that the patient would consider morally decisive, then consent is vitiated. The theory that would attempt to link biological fact, foreseeability, and non-disclosure into either criminal liability, if personhood is recognized, or at minimum breach of fiduciary duty and professional misconduct, right? So the crime is murder, right? The crime is murder, but we have to, go through all these hoops and walk on all these eggshells to be able to what let's identify what it is, right? It's crime. It's the greatest crime, right? To kill a developing human at 8 days in gestation Not just one, many. This one doctor killed in excess of 1,000 children, right? But what are the defense strategies, right? So the defense would focus on three primary pressure points: legal definition, right, causation, and standard of proof. First, it would argue that under the current law, pregnancy is defined as the beginning at implantation, not fertilization. Therefore, no legally recognized death occurred. Okay. So second, it would attack causation. There is no proof that fertilization occurred in a specific instance, no proof that implantation would have occurred, and no proof that the medication caused the alleged loss. Now, this is persuasive, right? This is very, very persuasive, and we have to be mature enough to agree that this is a persuasive strategy, a defense strategy, right? it it's would be certainly inconvenient to be able to monitor the womb, of a woman, or well, the fallopian tubes. You would be able to monitor that, where the baby is, the conception of the baby is, first occurs. There's no CCTV. You can't just kind of do that, right? So there's no proof that fertilization occurred in a specific instance, no proof that implantation would have occurred, and no proof that the medication caused the alleged loss. And that is true. That is absolutely true. And nobody can deny this as a true. However, it is very, very clear that even if it didn't occur, the mechanism of action is clearly understood to be, these birth controls, pills and IUDs and things like that, insertables, if you will. They are abortifacient in nature. We do understand that. Criminal liability requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt of a legally recognized victim, and a causal act. Probabilistic mechanisms are insufficient. Third, it would argue that disclosure met prevailing medical standards, as physicians are required to disclose material risks according to accepted professional norms, not according to every possible philosophical interpretation of when life begins. Even in a civil context, the defense would argue that fiduciary breach requires proof of duty, breach, causation, and damages, each of which would be contested. All right, so I mean, this is a it's it is very, very clear, and this happened beyond any doubt at all. But there are some defense strategies that we have to understand, right? You have to understand both sides of the story. Now, if you do understand these defense strategies, and let's say, for example, she would be acquitted, and the acquittal would come on so I mean, this is just nonsense, right? The fertilization, the idea that implantation, but this one is this one is probably the best one, that the best defense argument, and then that disclosure match prevailing medical standards. I don't know if that's actually the case. I don't actually believe that disclosure met the prevailing medical standards. I don't actually believe it did, because you have these minor aged girls, right? The 16, 17, 15, 16, 17-year olds, because I know, because I was with them when I was 15 and 16. These 15 and 16-year-olds, I was, committing fornication with them, right? 15 and 16, 17-year-old, these are supposed to be chaste virgin girls, waiting for their husbands. But no, they're over here committing fornication. How do I know this? Because I did it. I did it. I was in that, culture, if you will. It's a toxic, dangerous, unhealthy culture that this whole thing is promoting, right? This is the birth control bill. Right? What's the whole point of doing the birth control bill is to, promote fornication. That's the whole point of it, right? Anyway, um, a moot court, you know. The only reason I'm doing these videos is because my kids are at the mountain, right, with their grandfather. It's my grandfather's birthday. I got a lot of time, but I don't have time to do like this whole big thing. I don't have time. I don't even care enough. But I don't know. These videos do help me get it helps me get the stress off my back a little bit. It is a stressful thing. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.